3 or 4 minutes. Or we're going to talk to you right now. I need to get some stuff set up here on the technical side of everything. Ooh, that's weird. Get some stuff set up here on the. Alrighty. Let's see if you can hear me now. Ooh, somebody can hear me. That's not right. Hold on. There we go. That's much better. All right, let me switch things around here. Let me move these around. Let's get game capture up there. All right, here we go. Where are you, DT?
Okay, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Oh my gosh, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I haven't seen you for a while.
I know. I didn't get a chance to go to the last year, unfortunately, but it was yeah, it was kind of a bummer to miss that one. But when I heard you guys were doing it, you're doing this, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be a part of it. So.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Triples and oh my gosh, for you guys, absolutely.
Wow, that's really nice of you. I'm trying to get all of our faces here on the screen, so bear with me for just a minute. As I've said more than a few times, tech is not my thing.
It's quite all right. It's not mine either.
No, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say, "Oh, I'm awesome at it."
I'm the best. Totally.
There you go. That's how it should be. Okay, well, good. I can see my face on here. That's not what we want. Everybody knows what I look like.
Hey, Weston.
Hey. I can hear people now.
Can you see people?
Oh, good.
Yes.
It's all good.
You may hear a little bit of my kids are here and they're goofing off, so you may hear them kind of ramble around in the background a little bit. But I've since ordered them; they must be silent the whole time.
You can't do that.
No, that won't work.
That's not fair. That's their job. Oh, great. Well, we have. Oh, there. We've got one person. Let's see if we can have another person join us. It's not that I dislike tech. It's just when I'm the person at work and they're saying, "Oh, you understand this stuff. You fix it." I'm like, no. If I'm the person who understands this is really bad.
Yeah.
It is really bad when I'm the tech person. Fortunately, where I work now, they actually have tech people who know what they're doing, in theory.
Where are you working at?
Currently, I work for a company called Dormicaba.
Okay.
So they
Dormicaba. Okay. Rolls off the tongue.
It's kind of a cool name. It's a company that does door opening devices and stuff like that. And I just push paper around. I'm nothing interesting there. Well,
okay.
I've got you two on there, and DT and I aren't on there, so we'll just settle for talking to you guys today. Hi.
Okay.
Great.
Hi.
So welcome to the first annual Star Trek Online virtual convention.
I think that is fantastic. You guys are doing this. Super excited to be a part of it.
So we appreciate that. It's been kind of an interesting process because we were getting kind of set to go to Vegas and hedging our bets because, as you know, that's a huge investment of time and money. And that wasn't happening if we weren't sure it was going to happen. So we're just hedging bets, and then all of a sudden we kind of came up with this idea of, hey, if it doesn't happen, maybe we could just do it virtually?
Well, it's in a way, obviously it's cheaper for you guys.
Yeah.
A lot cheaper.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. But this whole thing is just kind of creative. People have to adapt and come up with different ideas. I am the fact that we live in this kind of world now with technology. It does allow for this. It makes this kind of stuff a lot easier, and it's more accessible to a lot of people. So hopefully people enjoy it. Enjoy our conversation today.
Can I have both of you talk for just a moment so I make sure that I'm not getting... people are telling me we're having terrible echo, so I'm trying to fix it.
Oh, okay.
I can talk too. I don't know if that's helping or not.
Is that helping at all, guys?
I'm not hearing any echoes on mine.
Yeah, but
nobody's...
Let's see if I can fix that one. How is that, Sav? Sav is out there going, we have terrible echo, Mom. Nope.
Yeah, because usually I'll get echo if someone has the speakers on, but I'm using everything through headphones. So
well, yeah, I'm always going with...
I'm not hearing any.
Yeah, I got my speakers turned down very low, so that's...
I'm on my headphones, and let's see if we get that and that. Better? Okay, they're saying it's better now. Yay.
Good.
Always good to hear that. So, yesterday Nick was on with us, and we spent a lot of time talking about the thing I love most of all in not the thing I love most of all in Star Trek Online, but one of my absolute loves in Star Trek Online, which is New Rom. I adore New Romulus. And it's actually the thing that got me back into the game after...
oh, really?
Yeah, it was a great story. It was engaging. It was heart-wrenching, and... just really pulled at all those little things. So it's not that I didn't love Star Trek, because I've watched Star Trek since it actually premiered, you know, back in the 60s. Yes, I'm old. And glad I'm not the only one who watched that.
You said nothing yet.
And obviously enjoyed the game. My son and I were at, I think, the 2008 convention when they were talking about it in the still planning ages. And he was... you know, heavy gamer, so he really enjoyed it at that point. And he's like, come on, guys, to play it. Okay, fine, we'll get it. And I was 2 days into it, and because I don't game. And he got me into it, got me really hooked on it, and I kind of faded out. And then Legacy of Romulus came out, and I am so in the game. And I've been somewhat dedicated ever since.
What do you think? So Weston, you've been playing pretty much most of the entire... since the game, was it like for you when Romulus came out?
I love the new Romulus arc, especially back during the old reputation system, because it continually progressed the story while you were doing the reputation system as well. So it felt like you were really interacting with all the characters and the world and the story, and progressively finding out this mystery about the arch and underneath and all this kind of stuff with the Olians and the Onians. It was an amazing experience. That was one of my favorite things back then. I love that.
Wow. I'm just told we're still getting echo, so Pi, if you're around, if you could help me out, that would be awesome. Nope, they're saying the echo's back. Pi, what am I doing without you? Let's try.
That's going to be a feature for this year. It's all Pi's fault.
Yeah. I can still hear you. Everything sounds great on my end. So.
Yeah, same here, so. Did you turn your speakers off Twitch? How's that? All right. Or set your volume off Twitch, because sometimes I listen to that at times.
Where are we streaming, by the way? I forgot.
Twitch TV / the Darkmom Consortium, one big word.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
How dare they eat?
What is this? It's like 12. Is it 8 hours ahead? Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And then of course we did the whole booth thing, which got me out to convention in Vegas, and
I just remember, the first time going, and I've only gone twice, but that first time going, I was so amazed by all the fans and everybody coming up, and then hearing that you guys used your own money to create your own booth to basically represent our game. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I just love your total love for the game and you're willing to do that. And then getting a chance to talk to you guys and see how fun and cool you guys were. Oh my gosh, I just want to hang out with these guys the whole time. But I have to do my job and go hang out of my own booth and do stuff. But it was really neat to meet you guys again, to see you guys again virtually. It's great. Sure. You're in me and Weston's wheelhouse.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So good.
Yeah.
I can tell you this is completely planned out.
Absolutely.
Which makes it more fun.
That's right.
And she's back.
There we go.
Do you?
Try that. If everyone could say something.
Blah.
Trying that.
Blah.
Okay, people, is that any better?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I do too.
Yeah, I know there's a 30-second lag here, so I'm waiting for people to talk back to us. So hopefully they can hear us, and hopefully it's not as garbled as it was. Somebody respond. Somebody say something in Twitch. Thank you. Okay, we're good. We are good. Yay! Tech stuff.
Now you have to confess what you did to fix it.
I turned off the NDI and just went back to the regular microphones.
All right, there you go.
We'll go
I haven't the slightest clue what that means. But
Neither do I. I got this hooked up by going to Google and going, okay, we're going to click this button and click that button and cross fingers. That's how everything gets set up.
How's my volume? Is it too loud? Am I good? I can adjust things on my end if I need to.
Same here.
Duffy says we're cooking with gasoline now.
All right.
I like that.
So getting back to cutscenes, which you guys are the kings of cutscenes. Ed and I, Idarta and I play a lot of games in the morning. We do a live stream in the morning, and we usually have a little bit more fun going back and playing with new tunes and replaying old missions. And going back through it, the cutscene was more of the traditional cutscene where it's an interruption of gameplay rather than building on the gameplay in some of those early ones.
Right.
And I'll exempt the new Klingon stuff because that's pretty awesome. But you go back in and it's gameplay, a little bit of a cutscene, but small cutscenes, not really interrupting so much. And then obviously there's a touch of expository. There's a little bit of explanation of what's going on. There's a little bit of character definition or scenario definition. And it's fairly static in terms of what it is until we reach Colosseum, where you see it really start to change a little bit, especially as they're coming out of the cave and you see the crashed ship in the distance. And all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more world immersive and less expository. Fortunately, Islamic's not talking at that point, which is really cool. And then we get into cutting the cord, and all of a sudden, the cutscene becomes an integral part of the game. So you're going over the buildings and through the stairways, around, and you get the orbital strike on the shuttles. You get to go watch Hakeev get executed. And all these little bits start to build, and it continues on, I've noticed, in more and more getting up into the area of brush fire, where all of a sudden it's absolutely essential. Those cutscenes make the story.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
the movie.
Right. And I think I'll kind of go into my process of when this kind of really started on my end and when I really felt like we took a turn. Because when we were doing the Zinketti mission, I can't remember the name of that mission, and maybe that is the mission that you're talking about. There's too many of them. I get distracted by that. But there was the shot where the Zinketti comes out of it's a buried little piece of something in the ground, and then it comes up out of the ground, and you see these ships get launched, and you're like, oh, these are Zenkethi ships.
The Drenzuli ships.
Right. And so that was the first time where our old art director, Mike, he storyboarded something. And I was like, okay, you know, these storyboard things, that's changing it a little bit. It's making us really think about how we want to tell our story. Because a lot of times, honestly, beforehand, it was just the designers would come up and they would do something really quick. And they weren't really thinking about composition. They weren't thinking about how can I tell a story through camera movement. And so then when we started to focus on storyboarding, then I don't know how I got involved with that, but I'm a huge moviephile. Like, I love movies. I took movie making classes in college. I understand the idea of editing a scene together, all the 180 rules and all this stuff. And I love that. I even love it more than actually making video games. That's where my first love is actually movies and storytelling. And so when they threw me onto this, and then I started storyboarding ideas. And the great thing too with Weston had kind of gotten on. He was our main animator for our project. We had another gentleman working on it before, but his focus wasn't really on cinematography and whatnot. He was more just animating characters and trying to get a bunch of animations for different characters. Where Weston focused on, okay, how can I do our cutscene editor? Because it's a very, dare I say, clunky tool. Am I understating that, Weston? Is it clunky?
I'm not sure I would use the word clunky, but yes, that's pretty accurate.
It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to use. But Weston, being young and ambitious, he said, "I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna try things." And he
I like a challenge.
took it to you. You literally stole my words. I said he took on the challenge of how can I make these storyboards that we're coming up with work. And then it was like, okay, this first one started, and then we're okay. Let's expand on that, and then we started to kind of get in a groove of how we can tell these stories. And we really, in the beginning, it was a lot of, we're going to draw out specifically, I want this shot, and I want this shot, and I want to do this, and I want this camera to move over here. And we took a lot of time to really craft that. And in the beginning, it was hard because I was also the environment lead. So I was like, I'm environment arting and storyboarding, and that takes a ton of time to do. So I couldn't do both jobs as much as I wanted to. But then as we kept doing the process, Weston...
We've kind of gotten on the same wavelength at this point.
So we speak the same language, and then it's more of like, Weston, you run with it, and then I will, if I see something that I want specifically, I'll call that out. Like, there are certain shots where I'm like, I want to see this shot. The one we storyboarded specifically the mycelia bomb going off in our last mission with Jula. That was storyboarded specifically because I wanted to see this one shot of the mycelium rift expanding and where you see this hero shot of the player looking at
yes, absolutely.
Growing. And I was like, that's a great shot, and I want to do that.
That's a great example because it's like when we were because like when we were talking that one through during that storyboarding process, like you were just like spouting those words and whatever, but I already had it in my head, like, this is what he wants, this is what I'm wanting, this is we are connected with this kind of thing. It works just really well.
Well, I love that particular scene because it's not just looking at the characters' faces, you're seeing what's happening around them, and it really has a greater effect on you. So you do embrace it more on an emotional level.
Right, and because you want, there are certain elements that I said we have to have that. We have to have the mycelium rift engulf somebody in that shot. We need to see how dangerous this thing is. So it's we're very intentional with how we're storyboarding this scene, where I don't think we were doing that before. We just, hey, here's move a camera to kind of give an idea of what's happening, but no, we want to tell a story. And so that's how that turned out. But to kind of turn it around a little bit, one of my favorite scene from that whole mission was the one that Weston did, that all I did was say, there's one shot that I want. I just want one shot where I want, and it's the Jula speech. That's all I said. There's only one shot where I want, where she says, and now we make ships together, and I want Jula and who's he talked to? He's talking to.
That's Kagran, right?
Kagran. I want that shot of them in frame staring at each other, and then she looks back at Jim-Pak. That's the only shot I said, but everything else in that scene was Weston being Weston, and he created the greatest, and I don't even know if he intended to do this, but when she says Qapla' and she puts her hand up, the composition of that shot, there's this perfect composition of a triangle you see.
Yes.
Her hand is up, and you see the doors, you see the triangle shape of the lights and everything, and it was all kind of this happy accident. So when he showed me that shot, I was like, I got all giddy, and I was just like, look at that shot. And I'm like, marketing is going to want to use that. That's a great shot. And what are all the commercials, the little banners on the side, they use that shot. And I was like, that is fantastic. So
that actually was an epic shot, and I didn't realize.
Great. And that was all Weston being Weston, because him and I have kind of developed this language, and I don't have to do much anymore, which is fantastic.
So
I just have to sit around and be like, Weston.
Hey, and to you, sir. And to you.
Yeah. That's my son, Keegan. Yes.
Hi, Keegan.
They say hi. He's waving. But yes, Weston is, oh gosh, I'm so excited to work with him. But
well, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do any of this without your direction on these cutscenes too. You have an amazing cinematic eye. Like,
well, thank you.
A lot of the cutscenes that we had before the latest episodes too. A lot of that is directly from what Scott does. He has this great way of telling stories with the camera, with all this knowledge of the previous movies and things that he's done with the past, and just being storyboard artist too. Is just, it's great, all of it.
Well, it's a lot of me watching a ton of movies and going like, oh, there was one shot. So I know I'm rambling. I apologize, but the scene
on.
when oh gosh, I'm getting when the changeling stabs.
Oh my word, I love that scene.
So that scene, I said I've seen this movie called The Village, where Dallas Bryce Howard stabs, there's two characters. One gets stabbed, but you never see him get stabbed. You just see the reaction on his face, and then he looks down, and you see the blade is in there. I'm like, I want that in this shot, and that's what he did. It was you see his reaction first, and then the camera moves, and you see what he's done. And yeah, it was just such a good scene. And the fact that Weston has now taken because again, the animators before didn't do this. They didn't touch the face. Mm-hmm. They never did any cutscenes with where we're going to mess with the face and do emotions and whatnot. He did that. He said, I'm going to do that.
Nice.
And so, sure, camera movement could do one thing, can only do so much if the face doesn't really reflect what's happening in the scene. And the fact that he not only does emotions, which are great, but he takes, if we're using an actor that's a real character, where we're using like Michael Burnham or whoever, or Garrick, he knows, because he watches the shows, how would Garrick emote this?
Well, actually, so that's something DT and I have mentioned a couple of times to each other, is that your Garrick is freaking great.
Everybody, and that was the first one that we really noticed. Was that the first one that you said, I'm going to do this? I'm going to make these content dialogue boxes and reflect his character?
Yeah, it is absolutely spot on with that. And it's, again, it just pulls you back into DS9. To the extent that, Gamma Quadrant is, as far as we're concerned, DS9 Season 8. It is it's watching the movie version of what that last season should have been.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people have been saying. And it was really neat to be a part of that that panel when we talked about that. We had a lot of people from the show up there talking about it. And I was like, man, yeah, these fans, because, I mean, I have to confess, I never watched Deep Space Nine. I was a movie person. Again, I'm a movie person. I love all the movies, and I watched 1 through 6, except for 5, because I never watched 5. That never happened. But but I could see how people reacted to that, and they loved it so much. And I'm like, oh, that's really great that we can say we did season 8.
You did.
Our game did seson 8, and Nick did such a great job
on that.
Yeah, and we had such a great environment to build upon, because Nick had built that, and did you guys talk about that yesterday with Nick about Deep Space Nine?
We talked about
the revamp of the whole station and everything else.
Yeah. That was him all the way. That was his pet. It was his pet project, and he put so much time into that thing.
he worked on that for so long. That had to be like a year-long project, wasn't it? Because I remember seeing the work in progresses for that back when we were talking about the Drinzuli.
Right.
Like that was so long. You worked on that so good.
It was. So here's the weird. And again, I know we're going down a rabbit hole, but when I started 5 years ago in May, and when I got started, Nick was doing that revamp. He did a white box, which is basically no textures or colors or anything. It's just the geo shapes. He was doing that, and I was like, "Hey, this is cool, seeing all this stuff." But I don't know what it really is. I just started, and then he got pushed to the side. And then when we said we're going to do X4 and it's going to be Deep Space Nine, it's like, all right, everybody, let's bring back Deep Space Nine and finish this thing. And he did such a great job with that. I really hope the fans appreciate just being able to walk around there as a social zone, being able to just interact with different people and whatnot.
I think everyone does. There are a couple things about Deep Space Nine I love. It's the people who just walk down from nowhere. They're still my favorite thing about it. I love the other one because I have claustrophobia. And so even seeing my tune in there, it's like, I can do this.
Yeah, but, it's a very cramped space.
Yeah.
It's funny because our designers have here's a little secret. We like to keep our environments a little bigger than normal because we want to incorporate gameplay in there. So you'll see that, like, hey, our discovery hallways, they don't match the actual geo because we need to be able to allow for combat and whatnot in there because the way our system is designed, we have to have our boffs and our bridge officers and everybody in there, and if we have it too cramped, it just creates a lot of problems. So with Deep Space Nine, it's great as a social hub and being able to kind of do certain things, maybe solo events. But if we need to bring our bridge officers in there, it's a little cramped to kind of get in there and do certain combat events.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's rough. But again, I think as a social zone and as being in there, it must feel so nice for people to be like, hey, I'm in the promenade. I'm in Garrick's prison area. He took the time. He does a lot of research. Nick, that being Nick, does a lot of research and gathering. I want to make sure we have this. We have the fish tank. We have all this stuff in there, and building all those and making sure that we incorporate all those. And then he had the hard trouble of being able to, the promenade doesn't. The things we see on the show only cover a little spectrum of what's all there. So we had to make up a bunch of stuff in the background that he had to kind of build. So. Yeah.
I remember seeing his reference folder from like all the different like screenshots from the show. My word, he must have had like 3,000 reference images. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it helps too with CBS because they would provide us with a bunch of stuff, and
That's
because
true.
it was a show that had been canceled, so it was easy to really kind of grab that stuff. Now with Discovery, it's a lot more difficult because they have to, it's a current show, so it makes it a little more difficult to get the kind of reference that we need for stuff.
Yeah.
Not being a huge Discovery fan myself, I've really enjoyed DS9, and I'm enjoying a lot of the subtleties, the little bits that you're pulling from Picard in terms of the 7 of 9 involvement.
Right.
But
What did you think of that?
I love that.
Of the 7 of 9?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. What is it? Measure of Morality was a fun TFO. But
I loved that TFO.
I really loved it. I'm one of the original series fans, so the whole revisiting of that whole trial, as it were.
Yeah. Just for me, playing the game for so long is like I loved working on that because it pulls from every single amazing thing that this game has had over its lifetime, all in one thing. It was great. I loved it.
It's actually the second.
And the cinematic of all the ships arriving at the.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. That's what I was going to say, DT. That last part is just like, yes, and you've got little bits of the voices, and it's very much like the 7 of 9 one on the ground patrol, the ground TFO, which I adored. That was
the Bozeman.
Bozeman, One Night in Bozeman.
That was fun. I like
right.
That was fantastic.
This is the first contact day one.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That was David Lopez, and so the call for that was we have the one where we do the rockets. That's And we did that a while ago, and David we wanted to up-res it a little bit because we knew that that gameplay didn't incorporate. It wouldn't be good for what we wanted to do with the Borg stuff. So our intention was to update both maps basically, but it became too problematic. So the only unfortunate thing is you'll play the rocket one, and the map looks very different than the First Contact Day one, because they're two totally different maps. The one with the Borgs has been updated, and hopefully eventually we'll be able to migrate over those changes to the new one. But it takes time, and we're a small team, so finding time for that is difficult. But David went to town on, okay, we got to relight it. We got to let's make sure that this feels very different. So we did it at night, which made the fires pop more. So we wanted to have everything by firelight that would kind of guide you through the map, and the bombardment and everything. And then they said, we're going to take snippets from the movie, and we're going to you can walk by the bar and you can hear, Riker and I'm brain farting on
Riker, Troy,
Deanna.
Riker and Troy.
Deanna, Troy, kind of arguing. I just love that.
The whole loaded dialogue.
That was.
I 9 times out of 10, I always just pause just to listen to that.
Exactly. Yeah, it made it the longest TFO there was, just because we're all sitting there going, "Yep, gotta listen to this every single time." But doing the night scenario too was wonderful because it added to the to the depth of what was going on. It's scarier. It's you're less comfortable because you can't see things, which made it a lot more fun. And the dialogue was also great too.
Well, and being dark, that is a difficult thing that we deal with. We struggle with that a lot, in that we want to make sure that people see the gameplay. But everybody has different monitors that they're using, so it's hard to be. I'll hear one designer talking about it's too dark, but I'll look at it on my machine and it looks fine. So it's a kind of and being that we're working remotely right now, it makes it really difficult, because I can't walk over to your screen and say, "Hey, no, just look at your settings; they're all wonky." So it makes it difficult. But the nighttime stuff, I love that. So we had to make sure we put enough light in there, to obviously make the enemies pop, but also to help guide the player if they were getting lost with stuff. Because I like the idea of not having hand-fisting things here, where it's like, here's a reticle, go here. It's like, let's let the environment guide you through places if we can. I know sometimes it's hard to do that, but games like Half-Life, those were ones where they didn't tell you anything. You just had to figure it out. So I like being able to try and do that, where let the player, you're not an idiot.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Let's give you enough clues to kind of lead you through the map to kind of figure out what the next task is. And so it's a challenge sometimes. So we have to do a lot of give and take sometimes to make sure that we're sending the message, but players aren't getting lost. So there's a lot of play tests where we kind of make sure, hey, have you played this map before? No, cool. Are you getting lost? No, you aren't. Great, then we're doing our job. If you are, then maybe we need to kind of change things a little bit to make sure that people understand where to go.
There's one thing I've been enjoying with some of the newer ones, certainly starting with Home, with the new Kittimer Discord, and to an extent with Measure of Morality, which is, even though I know I'm going to survive this, you've got enough fear of what the outcome is going to be that... even last night, I've played Kittimer Discord maybe a dozen times last night, and I'm still crouched up against the wall shooting at the Alachi going, come on, get that thing fixed. And I know I'm going to survive, but... Yeah, and I think that actually has happened a couple of times, certainly at the end of Measure of Morality, when the rest of the ships come in. Until that moment, there's that, okay, yeah, I can do this.
That's good storytelling.
It's great storytelling.
It's great storytelling.
It's funny, though. It's a very tropey thing. I've watched, since I've been at home a lot, it's like I'm watching all these different shows. And it's like, I'm rambling here, I know. I watched Lost recently because it was on some channel. And they did that all the time, where you're like, the guy's about to get shot. And you're just like, I know he's not going to, what's going to happen that someone's going to come in and save the day? And it always happened. Someone came in and saved the day. But it's a trope that works. People like that. So yeah, it is a trope, but it's a very effective trope. And so it would be nice to kind of come up with a story beat where you're like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen at all. But And I'm sure we have done those kind of things before.
Well, again, with this new one that's out, Animator Discord at the end, where all of a sudden the game has changed. You're not the good guy. You're on the bad guy. You're on the bad guy side. That was definitely a WTF moment.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And okay, and there's that part of me going, I can't be the bad guy. I'm me. You've got to come out with the next episode right now.
Right. And I guess we did do that, which I want to talk about Weston again. And we haven't had a chance to talk about this. When we got Jason Isaacs to come on and do that story when we were on Pavo, and not Pavo, I'm sorry, Friar's World D, sorry. That is actually my absolute favorite cutscene that Weston did, which was the one where I'm Lorca, not Lorca. Why am I brain farting on their names? Where self-sacrifice, when she basically Patel self-sacrifices herself. So that everybody could live. That one was, that got me really hard, because I knew when we wrote this, it was like, I want that scene, and we storyboarded the crap out of that one. That one was like very intentional about what we wanted to do, because I knew that had a lot of emotional beats to it. And it was going to be a long scene too. And I remember we were working some crazy hours, and we had talked about what we wanted to do with that scene, and then Weston came over. And I think, what time was that? Do you remember what I'm talking about? When
it was after midnight. It was well after hours. That was one of the longer times.
Yeah. But he came over and he said, or he either told me he showed it to me, and I looked at it and I literally screamed out loud, super giddy. And I was just like, I've never reacted like that with anything that we've ever done, because I was so excited about the emotion that he put into that. And because it was one of those things where on paper, I knew what it was going to look like. It was going to feel a certain way when she detonated the bomb and the explosion goes off. I love you, and then boom. And I was like, okay, it's going to be good. And then when you see it and you see how it's executed with care, and he does such a great job with it. It was like, I just couldn't. I get so excited about stuff. And when I saw that, I was just so happy, and so happy for Weston, because of how he did that and how he was able to execute that. And so Weston, I'm really proud of you for that.
It was one of scared me how loud you screamed. So yeah.
That was a terrific emotional moment, because we don't see main character death that often, and to have that actually come up in the game is just a bit earth-shattering or world-shattering.
Right.
And
just shows.
Go ahead, DP.
Shows a good job you've done. I mean, we're just getting more and more drug into the game, because more and more immersed into this, because how these cutscenes are just pulling us more in.
Right, and Rekha Sharma too. She came in studio and recorded, which was great, because it makes it a lot easier to kind of direct the player, or direct the actor, because you can do certain things. Michael Burnham. What's her? I'm sorry.
Sonequa Martin Green.
Yeah, Sonequa Martin. She was fantastic, because she was so good to work with, but she was remote. So I got to work with her, but she took all direction. It was fantastic. But Rekha Sharma, when she was there, she was so good. And I don't think she'd ever done voice talent stuff before. So this was kind of her first time getting into that. And she was, it was really good. And she was always like, how was that? How did I do with that? And I was like, you're tearing my heart out with this kind of emotion that she's doing. Because after the explosion has gone off and she's like walking around, totally stunned and screaming for her and thinking she's still alive. I'm like, oh, you're killing this performance, and you're doing such a great job with it. So, so good, so good. Weston's disappeared.
Yes. It's
real
life.
He's going to cry, because he's reliving all this. Like, the emotions.
Yeah, but the emotions are really driving the stories lately. There's so much more involvement versus originally. Yeah, I'm engaged because I always wanted to be a Starfleet captain. I go back to the days of Kirk and Spock and McCoy, and that's what I wanted to be when I grew up, which didn't work out that way, but now I can be. But the emotional content that was in the story, or in the TV shows, if you bought into it a lot, isn't as much in the game, and that's been building and building. And as I said, going back through Legacy of Romulus, that was emotional, and that really was the revival for me coming back into the game. And just seeing that build and build and build, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, has been fabulous.
Yeah. I think that was trying to remember the Sela mission where you go into the map where the little time bubbles. Yeah, that was. Go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you up, Paul.
No, you're good. No, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah, we were actually playing that the other day. Yeah, again, that's one of our morning things that we like to go back and revisit old missions that we don't do a lot. And great mission and a great story.
Yeah, and that was the first one that I was like. Again, Weston wasn't on the project at that point, or if you were, you weren't doing cutscenes. That was the one where I first thought of the idea of we should be doing some storyboarding for this. Because when I talked to the animator, I was like, why don't we do a scene, and I would love to go back and revisit this if we ever get a chance, the shot of the scene at the very end when Data is there.
Oh, yes, yes.
And she's like, now tell me about my mother. I said there needs to, because he's holding a trinket or something. He has something.
He's holding the
holographic display that she gave him.
Right. So I was like, why don't we end this shot? I talked to them, and he wasn't able to do it. But I know Weston could totally do this now. Why don't we do a shot where you the shot is that the trinket is in the foreground, and then you see Data because we didn't have Data as a character, we couldn't show his face. But we could blur it, so we could do a shot where you see Sela and Data, and they're in the background, and it's depth of field, so they're blurred out, and they sit to each other. They're sitting next to each other on the prison bed, and she says, "Now tell me about my mother." But you're seeing the trinket in the foreground of her mother, and I'm like, that would be a great shot. And so I'm thinking of this. That was my first. Let's do cinematic stuff in the game, and so that kind of. Was kind of the start of how we started doing this. And so I would love, Weston, if we ever get a chance to go back, that would be a cutscene I would love to revisit at some point. So let's make it happen, all right?
Weston, what areas would you like to see revisited?
I mean, I'm slowly working my way through like the older cutscenes that started the game. Like some of the earlier Romulan ones, not the actual Romulan missions, but the Romulan arc, I think it's just called the...
You're cutting out just a little bit there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But yeah, going through the older missions is what I've been doing very slowly over time. And it's funny that like you started talking about Colosseum initially when we started talking a while back, because that was actually the next one on my list
to
go
sweet.
and read back and revamp.
Yeah.
So
that was
going back and
That was one of the first ones where playing, I really began to enjoy it as more than just a go here, do that type thing. There was a story you were involved in. Much as we all don't like Slavic, it was a better visual and emotional appeal to it. It's certainly visual because it takes you out of that, you're just in this little image here and working in this box into you're in a world. Nimbus is similar. I love Nimbus to this day. Nimbus, New Rom, Ryza, obviously.
Right.
Ryza.
Right.
But these big, of course I do. It's one reason I hate the Las Vegas convention is it mucks up my playing on Ryza.
Oh, well, did you have you? So I'm going to ask this on an environment side. So you noted you obviously you've been playing since it.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, so new water. I put some new water in there. On the spawn point, again, my mission is to revamp that whole area because. Trade secret here, all the mountains, that's all just this thing we use called a terrain generator. So there's a lot of, it's all kind of very smooth and rounded rocks. But I can, if you probably noticed it in Pavo, there's a lot of, now we got this rock kit that we use, and we use it a lot now. We use it everywhere because they're good rocks. And we use those as three-dimensional rocks that we can start plugging into our environments to make them feel a little more realistic.
Wow.
So I did that on a tiny spot in Ryza. If right in the spawn point when you're looking at the sunset, if you turn around, there's a few rocks that I put in there just to kind of see how it would feel on Ryza if we started using more of those 3D rocks in there. And it feels great. And I'm just like, okay, when I get the time, when I have, it's like I have a lot of things on my plate. But when I get a chance and they can schedule like a good 2-week chunk for me to work on Ryza, then I want to go in there and just repopulate Pavo or Ryza with 3D rocks and make this feel a little more alive with some of those 3D spaces. Because we're doing a lot more of that now. Where we're buying assets online. We're finding, so because we're a smaller team, I don't have but we're able to go buy stuff. Like, let someone else do the heavy lifting, and I'll just go buy something and use it and kind of place them in the world. So that's what we've been doing a lot of lately, and it's paying off in huge droves, because those rocks that we've used in like 6 maps now, we bought them for like $20 online. I mean, yeah, $20, and then we're using them everywhere. So it's like, yeah, they pay for themselves a ton. So we want to try and do more of that stuff.
Hey, Mom, since you're on Ryza, why don't you go over and show the rocks to the people?
Okay. Oh yeah, if you're on Ryza, you can share your screen, and I can direct you.
Oh yeah, technical stuff. Share my screen. Let's see if I can even move. There we go. Where am I?
You're on the dance floor, so.
Well, I know I'm on the dance floor, but all my toys aren't showing up.
What do you guys think of the summer ship?
Oh, I actually like the summer ship. It's cute.
I wasn't. When in the design process, I wasn't sure, but now that I've seen the finished version sitting on Ryza, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and it shows up really well in the sun.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, you're looking right at them. Here they are.
Hold it. The ones right in front of me. Those big ones.
They
are different. Holy moly!
Because if before it would just be a big wall of that green grass.
Yeah, right. I didn't even realize that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so imagine when I get a chance to, like, you'll have a bunch of little rocks at the ground. They call it skirting, where I can go in there and kind of place things. So there's some heavy rocks, big rocks in the foreground or up here, and then you have some smaller rocks kind of sloping it so that it's not this, because right now it's just really hard, sharp. You got grass and then you got rock, but we want to kind of feather it where you're slowly getting a little bit less and less rocks. So I just wanted to see how they played, and they play really well. So I think
they do. I didn't even realize that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So give me some more time, Cryptic Studios.
Hey, I'm happy to give you as many years as you want.
Hey, I'll take them.
One of our watchers right now, Shadow Poa, loves the water, and he thanks you guys. So.
Oh, you're welcome. I still have plans for it, because it's right now the way it's working. It doesn't feel like waves. It's still. I need to get it to where it's radial, so it goes around the entire island. Like if you go on the back of the island, the waves aren't going in the right direction. So there's some techniques that I have to do to kind of get it to work that way. It just takes time to get that to work the way I want. But my intention is to make this thing feel better and better every time. So I just need more time to do it.
That's always the thing. When I get time, something you mentioned earlier, kind of my watchwords. When I get done with this, which is today,
right,
then we got the next project to start. So there's always something cooking.
Yeah.
Hey, did you guys talk yesterday about the new Klingon interiors that you saw? Like New Khitomer?
We did cover a little bit.
Yes,
of that.
We did on New Khitomer.
Khitomer a lot. The redesign on Khitomer.
Yeah, it was nice because it does a lot. It allows for some good stuff for the cutscenes. It just shows really well. Because again, some of our older stuff, and again, it's us as artists. We look at current games and we go, oh gosh, we can do so much better. Maybe the fans don't care, but we as artists care. But I would hope that when you notice a difference, you say like, wow, I noticed that looks way better than what it used to be. So the new Khitomer stuff, yeah, Nick did such a great job with building those that it allows us to A, show our cutscenes really well, B, build things, reuse those in different ways. They're basically puzzle Lego pieces, and so we can reconstruct those and use them in different places, and just continue to reuse them everywhere. So you'll probably see those new Khitomer assets show up in later, as we continue on in the Year of Klingon. You'll see those showing up in other places as well.
I totally understand. As Mom knows, I do a lot of graphics art for various various personal projects, and I look at my old stuff like you guys, and I look at the new stuff. It's like, I need to redo this.
Yeah.
It just goes from, not that it was bad in the past, but it's just clean and nice and sharp. And, there's, again, I don't know how much of this is in other games because I don't play any other games.
There you go.
After I moved here, I'm living here on my own for a couple of years while we try and find a house out here, but I get up, I play Star Trek Online, I go to work, I come home and I play Star Trek Online. And that's been my life since I moved out here.
Do you look at your son and you're like, you did this to me? Thank you very
It's mutual. He was born just as TNG was going on, so he has been brought up in a family of Trek. In fact, we just finished the interview that was finishing up was my interview of him, because when I started playing, he would be in the other room, and I'd go, get in here, and he'd be like, okay, you're going to go here, you're going to do this, okay, good. Send him away. He'd come back in a few minutes later to help me with the next problem. And yeah, definitely this is partly his fault, but it's definitely my fault for starting it with him.
There we go. But it's okay. It's a beautiful thing you guys get to do together.
Hey, yeah, we beat up people with each other. We both study martial arts. And
nice.
Yeah, for a long time he was my senior, and then I outranked him when he went to college, so now I'm his boss. Yeah. And yeah, he is a huge video game person, and definitely brought me into the fold, but this is it. This is my game. So when people say, well, when you play this game, I don't play that game. I don't know. I think of this as the gold standard of what a game is.
I love that. I love that. Hey, Weston, I want to ask you a question. So we were talking about revisiting things. Is there anything that you have done since your time on Star Trek where you're like, man, I really wish I could go back and revisit that, because I know there's more I know now about the process, and I know
as in stuff that I've already done.
Right. Yeah.
Heck yes, like a lot. As much as I love all of the cutscenes that we did in Victoria's Life, my word, I wish I could go back and do a couple of them. Because we were still learning things back then. Like, nowadays, we make a lot of custom animations for everything. Back then, we were still trying to... I mean, we were making new stuff, obviously, but we were also trying to reuse as much as we could as well. So you can see a lot of the stock animations of the gestures that people talk, and it's like, I could do so much better now.
Yeah, that is a huge difference I've seen between the old ones and the new ones.
Mm-hmm. And then and here's another thing. We started, and unfortunately we went on lockdown here, but we started doing motion capture, which is a huge change. And I think so. The Jula speech, that was all motion captured. Jula was all motion. There's
a lot of touch up afterwards, but yes, it's a huge help.
Because it gets there's certain subtleties that your body does that it's just really hard for an animator to kind of replicate. And so all the little movements that we did, I got to wear this suit, and Weston would direct me and tell me he would read the lines, and I would kind of mimic and mime towards that line. Like I would do this fist thing, and like looking around and looking at different people, and then he was able to kind of take those together and do cleanup. And I think as we continue to do that, will get easier. The process will get quicker and easier for us to do, and then we'll be able to incorporate that more and more into our different stuff. And we'll be able to create stock animation, but they'll be motion captured. It won't be, and so we can have different varieties of coy or angry or whatever. We can do, like, I'm going to do 8 different angries, and then when I do a stock angry, I don't have to do the same one every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even like death sequences. You know, it was funny because I'm trying to, Weston, I'm going to brag again. We had some boring death sequences, and Weston, you did like a variety of like 5 different ones, right?
Essentially what was going on is that when your player character died, they had one animation.
Oh, I love the new ones. The new ones. Those are so good.
Yeah, exactly. The one where you're reaching and you die.
Yeah. That was actually, I think that animation was actually used by some of the changelings when they die.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's like creative reuses. I love doing that.
Who told you to do that, actually? Or did you just come up with that on your own?
Oh, geez, it's been so long. I can't remember if it might have been Bill or maybe even if it was Sam. That's been a while now.
But you didn't do that. I guess I was asking if you just said, I want to do this, but you were directed to make a bunch of different...
Yeah, okay. But I mean, I'm always looking to improve player animations at any time. But no, that one was one I was shown later.
That was definitely a hoot when I first saw it, and I'm like, this is great. You're not just dead.
Yeah. And anytime, go ahead, Wes.
No, I was just gonna say I love that now that I'm on the project, I can help give the players animations that give their characters more emotions. Because like you were saying earlier, Scott. Before, we never really did that. And it's like, that's something I love doing with so many of the cutscenes, especially the more recent ones, is It's this little sadistic part of my mind is like, yes, I get to make a cutscene that makes the player gonna cry. Yes. So it's stuff I love doing that kind of thing, and like that's why I love like with the Kittimer Discord is just that whole thing with the mycelial bombing. You, the player, are the central focus of that cutscene. You are the one that's seeing all this happen. You're the one that's might get killed at this moment. You're the focus of that. I love being able to bring the player into focus as the hero of the story,
which is what we always wanted that in Star Trek. That's why we play this is because we want to be Captain Kirk or Picard or whomever.
Absolutely.
Right. It stinks in some ways that in a lot of ways Weston is got one hand tied behind his back because the player can't talk in the cutscenes. Mm-hmm. So we have to figure out ways to do it to where. And we did this actually. Have you guys done the new Klingon tutorial?
Oh yes, yeah. I started a new tune specifically to do that after having done it on a new tune for the old one, so I could do an A/B comparison 2 weeks in a row.
Right. Cool. So who is the prisoner? Davis? Am I getting?
No, that's Franklin Drake.
Drake. It was. I knew it was a D word. So Drake in the original cutscene, like there's all this like Drake talks, and then the player talks with just subtitles. And it just feels weird. So we had to bring in a separate character to kind of be the mouthpiece while Drake talks. So these are things that we have to do, unfortunately, because we don't have the ability to, because you can choose your character. And I want to be a girl. I want to be a guy. I want to be this. I want to be that.
I want to be a Gorn.
Right. Yes. We can't voice all that different stuff. So we have to just deal with it in dialogue. So the unfortunate of it. So we have to be creative in the ways in how we make.
It's an interesting challenge to make a pantomiming protagonist, but it's a fun challenge nonetheless, and I think one that can be pulled off relatively well as well. Just not only by our game, by a lot of other games that you see out there as well.
Right.
But it does take some thinking outside the box from what you would expect to see, and it does, as you said, becomes more immersive. You definitely are pulled into it more.
Yeah.
Right. Very, very good.
Well, I know we're coming up on the end of the hour. I would like to thank you both for joining us. It was really nice of you. I appreciate it, you giving up some of your Sunday to be here.
Oh, absolutely.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for letting us be a part of that.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Well, you're always welcome. Thank you very much. Hopefully we will maybe see you in Vegas. Who knows?
That would be, well, let's just say I'm going to wait for that vaccine before I go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a possibility, but I'm brave, I'm daring, but it's more to the point of, do I really want to throw almost $10,000 at something and it just be me and DT and who else is coming with us? Mr. Dave. Me, DT, Mr. Dave, and Board King. 4 of us being there and the only ones there.
Maybe we should cosplay as Breen.
No, I thought that we should cosplay in the red environmental suits from Insurrection.
There you go.
Yep.
Very
full
cool.
PPE. Thank you both for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Wow. Let's put our mics back on here. We got that mic back on. That mic back on. Hey, that was really freaking awesome. That was so nice. So cool. Ooh, I feel like a big kid sometimes when they're here. That was a great day. Okay, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling totally good. I am going to do something here real quick.